Advanced graphic design can be pretty simple. Advanced graphic design is built on a contradiction in that strong fundamentals, the basics, make design work look advanced. Now, counterintuitively, it's the simplest and easiest to understand principles of design that create the most sophisticated work. As a result, it's completely possible to learn everything you should have learned in 4 years of design school in 3 months through good study skills, a commitment, and a plan. Now, here are 5 common problems that I'm going to explain that I see repeatedly that keep work from being both interesting and sophisticated. Now, if you address these issues, you're well on your way. Now, I can't stress this enough. You can make sophisticated design work by focusing on the easiest to understand principles. Art and design schools tend to attract a different kind of student than, say, engineering or medicine. Now, if we look at the overwhelming majority of art and design school SAT scores and acceptance rates, you'll quickly learn that nearly all of them will accept almost anyone. Now, why am I being so mean? Why so mean, Elliot? Well, there are a handful of selective art and design programs, and it might sound like player hating, but these are just facts. And there is a point that art and design students in most instances don't generally have a history of academic excellence and are not typically known for their study habits. Why am I dragging art and design students? Wasn't I an art and design student, and don't I teach in an art program? Well, yeah. So relax. I might not be talking about you, and I might not be talking about your institution. There are clear exceptions to the rule. But don't shoot the messenger. I'm just keeping it real. And there is a larger point here. It's that art schools historically are not bastions of good study habits, showing up on time, and generally a disciplined approach to learning. Facts are facts that engineering is hard. And by contrast, art is easy. Now, this fact alone has pushed far too many students into art. And through this lens, it's an objective statement to suggest that art is a kind of easier field. It's, in a way, it's college on the easy mode. If you've spent any time as a professor, as I have, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, all right, why am I pointing out this uncomfortable fact? There is a positive point among all of the negativity that I just laid out. So for numerous reasons, I'm highlighting this issue specifically to suggest that a motivated, relatively self-disciplined, committed adult who has come to the stark realization that a career won't simply happen by itself, a bank account won't fill itself, and food won't magically appear on the table, can compress the learning curve. Now, if you put the bong down, and with good study habits, discipline, no frat parties, a lack of college bullshit and drama, if you get serious, you can learn the basics of design in about 3 months. Solid basics make complex and sophisticated design. Bad design is from a lack of understanding the basics. So let's step through the critical elements of advanced graphic design facts. These issues are frighteningly easy to address and will instantly make your work exponentially more sophisticated. But the first thing that we have to deal with is we have to deal with mindset. Arguably, the single most important mistake is the following logic. Good design must be hard. Therefore, it must be complex. The problem, stated as simply as possible, is that unsophisticated designers think that they need to try hard, and therefore they begin with complexity and they wrestle to try to make that complex mess that they have created into something good. The truth and the solution is quite the opposite. Begin with simplicity and work towards complexity. When kids see something like this, they assume that it's a mess of complexity when in reality, it's very, very simple. Everything in this composition builds from simplicity to complexity, not the other way around. Even complex work should be rooted in strong fundamentals. The basics are what make the work look sophisticated and advanced. Now that mindset is out of the way, let's take a look at a set of specific issues that I see over and over again that are instant hallmarks that drag the work into a kind of unsophisticated condition. These are the mistakes that I repeatedly see at the graduate level from extremely well-educated and committed designers. So getting these simple things right is critical. Now, for good reason, many designers love the way that justified columns of type have a clean rectangular shape. So justified type is when the type is set in a rectangular shape. We can see that here. Both the left and right-hand column of this example from the Font Shop blog, Monthly Archive, February 2023, are justified type. On this side, you see what the problem is. You should be able to see those white spaces over here in that column instantly. These are called rivers. The white dots on the left column running through the type are a hallmark of bad typography. You should sensitize yourself to the idea that word spacing that creates rivers are a huge problem. We can see another example here on the screen. So you can see that on the screen in the second image that appeared, that the type size is slightly smaller, allowing for the computer to adjust the spacing between the words. So if we look at these two different images, this one has rivers running through the type, and this one, so I'm doing it backwards, this one does not. You should be able to see this and identify this instantly. Rivers. So in terms of setting type, the basics are incredibly important. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at this. You have to be able to see this instantly. Again, this is a repeated problem that even with the most committed students who are incredibly well educated, I see over and over, and the solution is very simple. Set the type either flush left, flush right, or centered, which allows the computer to calculate the word spacing between the words in a more efficient way. Or if you must use justified type, learn how to set it so that it doesn't have these issues. Possibly or arguably the simplest solution to this problem is to simply select all of the type in half or quarter point increments, decrease the type size until you'll see that the type is set at an appropriate set length for that column, making those rivers go away. There are other ways to solve this problem as well. The simple fact that I see this issue and that I run a graduate program with incredibly committed and really smart students, I see this more than any single typographic error is kind of insane. This raises the issue of rag. When we make type flush left, the rag, which in typography in flush left would be the right hand column of the type, Effectively, what we're looking for is something really simple: a long line followed by a short line, followed by a long line, followed by a short line, followed by a long line, with a kind of average showing, when we blur our eyes, an even gray rectangle. It's very simple. The second major issue that I see is typeface selection. We want to stand on the backs of giants. Don't get some fucked up free bullshit online typographically and wonder why your design looks like ass. I'm going to make a very concrete suggestion. Pay for the Adobe Creative Cloud. I know not everybody has the money for it, but in order to select a typeface, one of the reasons why I raised the issue of education and educational history is that what you're doing is you're checking for the veracity of sources. So here we can see Adobe fonts. What you should do is when working on a project, you should go to Adobe Fonts and use your eyes to simply select 10 possible typographic examples that you're considering using. Favorite them. After you have favorited them, Adobe allows you, they have hundreds of thousands of typefaces. Click on the typeface. It will list both the Foundry as well as the type designer. And then what we're doing is we're involved in an exercise of checking the veracity of sources. If we click on the name of the designer, we can both read their CV, which technically is an appeal to authority, but more importantly, we can look at their website, or we can look at previous examples or other examples of their typeface. Now, we use our eyes to confirm that the typeface, that their work is beautiful, or is appropriate, or is striking the tone that we're looking for. This is checking the veracity of sources. When we do this, we immediately make sure that our work is standing on the backs of giants, that the typographic foundation of that work is beautiful already. Don't find some fucked up free bullshit online. Use it in your design and wonder why the shit looks like ass. The third issue, or fourth issue, that I run into over and over that is so confusing to me from well-trained designers is the notion of grids. I am routinely shocked and amazed by the fact that many well-educated designers, when using a grid, use grids that look like this. Use regular rectilinear grids. This is not a grid. That is not a grid. Pay attention. A grid system is supposed to make a portion of the design decisions for you. A grid builds in an unseen logic into your compositions. So when I open, or when I routinely see InDesign files or Illustrator files where individuals are using grids that literally allow, that are regular rectilinear grids that literally allow for an infinite, nearly infinite positioning of elements, you're effectively not making a grid. Now I'm going to use a hyperbolic, for lack of a better word, example here, but this is not a grid. Grids build in their own logic. That is a grid. Again, it's a hyperbolic, it's not a grid that I have used. As a matter of fact, I generally don't use grids. But if you're going to use a grid, the point is that the object itself should make design decisions for you, should obviate certain design decisions. These are examples of grids. A regular arrangement of rectangles that allow for a nearly infinite arrangement of elements on a rectilinear page is not a grid. And finally, the single most important component of becoming a sophisticated designer and making, for lack of a better word, advanced design is thinking. It is not so much your ideas, in quotes, it is the way that you think and what you think about that will make you a better designer and a more sophisticated designer. Here is the straight poop. Graphic design is largely about semiotics. In plain English, what does this mean? It means that graphic design in most instances is not about the content, unfortunately. It is about the way the content is presented. Now, many of the more sophisticated designers among you will say, "You are wrong, Elliot. That's your problem. Graphic design or design is about problem solving." That is correct. But in the traditional sense, clients come to designers with content, with a manuscript, text, or images, etc. And the designer, in most instances, in the overwhelming majority of instances, format and present that material. This simple structure lies at the core of some forms of design and is the single biggest challenge in becoming a sophisticated designer. What do I mean by that? This structure, that the client has the content, the idea, and the designer formats the idea, has had a profound effect on the way designers are trained and behave. The most important component in sophisticated design is the designer's cognitive schema, the way that they understand their role, the way that they understand the world, and what they find interesting. So here, at long last, is my most powerful suggestion to you. The key to more sophisticated design is to look outside of design.